I went into it not expecting anything. I was thinking that Dan would win producer because that seemed to me to be a sure bet. And I, because of who they were up against, maybe this was me protecting myself, but because they were up against Springsteen and Mumford and Fun and Coldplay, you know, and on, I was thinking, all right, I think Dan's going to get one. And I was thinking, all right, it would be great if they could get one on top of that. I was almost banking on Dan getting that. So I came as a total surprise. I was watching the pre-Grammys on my iPad at home, and we had some neighbors that were going to come over, that were coming over to watch the show. And when the two, actually 3 awards back to back to back almost came up, Katie and I just started screaming. It felt as exciting as 2 years ago. You know, and 2 years ago was awesome because it was the first time, and this time I thought, oh gee, is it going to seem different or like old school, you know, or been there, done that, and it wasn't that way at all. It was just exciting as can be. Now the one that they won on during the show, I didn't expect them to win that either. And we had like 4 or 5 people in our house at that time, and everybody just started screaming and jumping up and down. I was texting Patrick, and he's, you know, sending me, yeah, wow, two Grammys, you know, just sort of because he's like in the audience and stuff. So, yeah, it was a real shock.
Yeah. Did he seem shocked from what you could
Yeah,
tell?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. One sweet thing I noticed when they went up for the best rock performance on TV, they both got up there, and Pat had a little slip of paper. Did you notice that?
No.
With I think Patrick, or maybe they both had written down, all right, these are the people we have to make sure we thank, and Patrick like handing it to Dan. That was kind of cool.
And one thing about those two, they don't forget where they came from, do they?
No, they don't. They don't. And it was great that they gave a shout out to Akron. You know, they did it in the pre-Grammys and you know, Nashville where they live. But and I noticed on Facebook, I was putting some stuff up, and that shout out to Akron meant a lot. It really meant a lot, you know, and I was so glad that they did that. People were saying, "Gee, thanks for the shout out," you know.
Yeah, it probably got attention all over social media. Probably
Yeah.
taken off on Twitter and everything. As his dad, I mean, can you even comprehend where he's come from and where he is now? I mean, it's.
I guess I'm beginning to comprehend it, you know, but I still have a hard time really understanding what's happened. You know, it's been a long road. It started when they first recorded their first record in the fall of 2001. So now we're almost into, you know, 12 years. And having with his whole family and friends and watched shows from the very beginning, I don't think anybody could see this coming. I always thought, God, they really are good. This is really good music. But I never thought, like I remember every step of the way when they would move from like playing to 30 or 40 people, and then it went to 100 people or 200 people. And then, you know, it went to 500 and 1,000 and 3,000, you know. But I remember we were in England. The only time I've been over there, my wife Katie's from England, and we went with her father in the fall of 2003 to see some of her family, and there was a Black Keys show broadcast on BBC. And it was in Brighton, England, and they played before there may be maybe 200 people there in the venue. And I remember saying to Katie, you know, I can't believe they're playing before 200 people in Brighton, England. And I still feel that way. You know, when we saw them play this last year at the we went to see 2 Staples Center shows. They sold out, and I still really have a hard time believing that it's happened that way. I mean, a lot of luck, a lot of hard work, good fortune. Not sure how it happened, but it did, you know. But I am starting to understand that it has happened, you know. I'm starting to get that.
I forget who introduced her. It might have been an actress from one of the shows. Said something about garage band or something that made a reference to that.
Yeah.
Did they talk about your garage, or was it?
Well, they were playing in basements. They played in various basements. I think they back when they were in high school, they jammed in my basement and probably Dan's basement, and they recorded the record where Pat was living in an apartment in Akron somewhere, and that's where they recorded the first one. But yeah, it was mostly basements rather than garage band. They were a basement band. I don't think they ever were a garage band.
Now, you, as a father and a protective one, obviously, when he was growing up and pursuing this dream, was there ever discussions to like get a real job? This may not work out.
Well, the classic story is that when he was driven to do music, and he had gone to Pittsburgh Art Institute of Pittsburgh for a couple quarters in photography. Then he came back here and was enrolled at Akron U, and always was working. He was working since he was 15, different jobs, and trying to make money to get instruments and that kind of thing. But he decided that he told Katie and myself and my dad, we were at Gasoline Alley where he was working. He was working as a cook, doing some cooking, and it was a Sunday night, and he said, I don't think I want to go back to school in the fall. This was like December of 2001. They'd already recorded The Big Come Up, and a label had decided to put it out, but it hadn't come out yet. And he's like, I don't think I'm going to go back to school. I think I need to work on this full time. And I said, well, I understand, but geez, I think you need a degree. I think you need to maybe stay in school. And my dad, bless his heart, he says, I think Patrick ought to not stay in school and work on this. And of course he didn't go back to school. And it was a great moment for my dad, who died a couple of years ago. And Pat never went back to school. And Dan had not been in school at that point. And from then on, they just worked, really, they worked full time on the band. They were mowing lawns that winter and spring, and trying to get money together to see where, the record would take them, not knowing where it would go. And so there was that moment. But he always had everybody's support, and but I guess that was the father gene in me kicking up, and that was the grandfather from where he could sit, to say, go ahead.
You only live once, right? Take advantage of it. All right, very good. And what's the story on the Black Keys name? I've never asked that.
All right, let's see. How do you tell this quickly? There was a guy named Alfred McMore, who was an incredible outsider artist. He had mental health issues, let's say, and he had. I was introduced to him through Dan's father, Chuck, who collects outsider art and sells art, different types of art, and is a real eye, and has been doing this for years. Chuck told me one day in the neighborhood, because we live in the neighborhood together nearby, hey, you ought to meet this guy, Alfred McMore, and see his work. I said, sure, show me. So I went to his house, he showed me. It's amazing, 5-foot wide scrolls. You roll them out, and they go about 100 feet, 150 feet. Pencil drawings, crayons of people in funerals, people in caskets, people in churches. Weird, just all kinds of, sort of like a movie scene. So I became very interested in Alfred, and I wrote a story for the Beacon about him. Got to know him, and became friends with him after the story was in the paper. He called me. Made the mistake of giving him my card. He had my home number. He would call and leave messages at home. Hey, Jim Carney, I need some 5-foot wide paper. I need, can you get me some right guard? I need some Diet Coke, some pipe tobacco, something. So I would go and see him and take him stuff. And I convinced my church at the time, to help buy paper for him. The paper was like $35 a roll. So we were getting him, 1 roll a month or something like that. Anyway, he would say if I hadn't responded to a call or had ignored him, he would leave like 15, 20 messages. Your Black Key's taking too long. Your D flat. Your D flat's about 100 miles long, and your Black Key is like 20 miles wide. It's just sort of nonsensical stuff.
Sense.
I think he was saying the Black Key to him, I think, meant something that was discordant, something, like on a piano, it's a little off. And I think he was
connection between you and that story.
Yeah,
I had no idea.
It's a great connection. So Alfred would say, your black key is taking too long. Black key was a very big term to him. It was to Dan, because Dan knew Alfred through his father, his whole family. The Arbachs all knew Alfred. And it was to me, because after I became friends with him, everybody in my family got to know him. Pat, Mike, Will, everybody knew him. And so in the fall of 2001, I get an email from Patrick. He says, hey, Dad, we've decided to call the band the Black Keys. What do you think? I of course, knew what it meant. I said, great. Alfred McMore died 2009, and they had so they named the band after that term. They even named their publishing company after Alfred. It's called McMore McLest Publishing, because Alfred McMore would call himself Alf McMore McLest, something like that. And they raised, they had a fundraiser for him after he died, and raised some money for community support services. I think they still are helping that agency, because that agency helped Alfred.